And welcome back, everybody. Another lovely Sunday and another respect. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. It's been an interesting couple of months in reality. Things are really getting crazy and crazier every day that goes by. A couple of weeks ago, I let off a little bit of steam in regard to what happened with Charlie Kirk, and that felt good. It felt good to get it off my chest and have a discussion about it. But there are other things that are going on, and seem to be going on a continuous basis. It's not a good thing. You watch all the attacks on police officers and on ICE agents and other federal agents, and you have to wonder where our society's going. You really do. People can't feel safe in their churches or their synagogues or their mosques. There's always a danger. And it seems though the other side keeps pumping out rhetoric, but worse than that is the fact that our quote unquote elected representatives feed that rhetoric. And we're going to get into that discussion. Just before we do, it's a little strange QR code up in the corner tonight. As you all know, our friend Louis Herms is running for governor of California. I'm not telling anybody to do it. I'm not asking anybody to do it, but if you choose to donate to Lewis's campaign, 100% of the money goes to the campaign, and that's the QR code right there. So feel free if you'd like to do it. If not, no biggie. So let's get right to it. And I want to bring on my guest, who I've had here before. Wonderful guy, very smart man, Sheriff Richard Mack. How are you, sir?
Mark, I'm doing, well, I guess personally and physically, I'm doing very well. I feel fine, but my heart is bleeding for my country, and I pray that the good Lord will heal our hearts, and that we will turn our hearts, and that He will heal our land.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And, we can get right into this with what we were discussing earlier, because it's the latest piece of violence that we have to deal with. Earlier this morning in Michigan, there was a church shooting by a former Marine, this lunatic over here, who decided that he was going to go to a Mormon church and shoot it up. Nobody has any idea exactly why. He's a former Marine, somebody who swore to protect our country from threats, both in our country and abroad, and decided to be the threat himself. I don't know exactly why, but we're going to get into that discussion right now. So I know this was near and dear to your heart.
Well, it is, and the Charlie Kirk shooting was very near and dear to my heart. That's actually the area of the country where I started my police career. Orem, Utah is where UVU is, and that's right next to Provo, where I was a cop in Utah County and Provo for 12 years before I moved home and ran for sheriff. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, Lucy, actually graduated from that school. And my CEO of CSPOA, Sam Bushman, he had a nephew there, and we interviewed him just the day after the shooting. And he was only 20 feet from Charlie Kirk when he was killed. He's in the medical field. He's a paramedic, and he said he saw the shot kind of explode from his throat. And he knew he was dead. He knew he would not survive. And indeed, it doesn't appear that he survived more than a couple of minutes, if that much. So, but now we have the shooting. What was it, yesterday? That happened in North Carolina with a man pulling up in a boat on a dock and started shooting people in a restaurant or dance hall. I can't remember what kind of facility he was shooting. And then today we have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as the Mormon Church. get shot up at 10:30 this morning, and I am a member of that church, and I have been all my life. My parents were all their lives. My grandparents on both sides were their entire lives, and I go back to the foundation of our church. Well, I should say the restoration of our church back with Joseph Smith, who restored the church to the earth in the early 1800s. And I believe in my church, and I believe in the doctrine. However, as I told you earlier, I have been critical of the church's policies. I believe that they came to an intersection and they turned left when they were supposed to turn right. And I don't know what's happened, but during the COVID-19, they told people to get vaccinated, and they recommended it. And I totally disagreed with that. And then now the church policies right here that I sent you, and I'm glad you're showing it. I want everybody to know this is the policy of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it's telling me, a former law enforcement officer of 20 years, and I'm very good at firearms training. I know how to handle a gun very well. And their policy has told the church, told me that I cannot bring a gun to the church. And even if you have a concealed carry permit, we are not allowed, members of the church are not allowed to bring our guns to church. I will tell you flat out that I have taken my gun to church numerous times. But and one of the reasons is about 15 months ago, there were a couple of people who invaded our church while we were having church service. And I live in Gilbert, Arizona, and the church is about a mile from my home, from right where I am right now. It's over this way. Yeah. And just west and a little bit north of my home. And one was a tall, nice looking man, and he looked like a missionary. He was dressed in a white shirt and tie, had a nice dark tie. He was about 6'4", nice looking, very dark complected. And then somebody came in with him. I saw both of them come in, and I immediately got suspicious because the one guy looked like I said, looked like a Mormon missionary. And the other one was dressed in cutoffs and a tank top. And that's not usually how anybody comes to our church. We expect people to be dressed nice. Anybody can come in, and he was not told to leave or anything like that. But I told my wife, I said, I want to sit by those guys. I want to motion over and tell them to come sit with us. But they never caught my eye. And anyway, the taller gentleman that was, and he was very young, I'd say maybe 22, 25 at the most. And he walked up to the podium and took over the mic. And he even asked the leaders there, can I speak for a moment? And they said, oh, they were really taken aback by it and didn't know what to do. And they said, yes. Well, he started bad-mouthing our church and started really being critical of Joseph Smith. And everybody's entitled to their opinions, but this is not what we go to church for. We go there to worship the Lord. We believe in Jesus Christ. His name is in our church name. We believe that all mankind are saved by and through Jesus Christ. We preach of Jesus Christ. We believe in Jesus Christ. We are Christians. There's some of the Christian world who says we're not. Because we have some doctrinal differences does not mean we're not Christian. And I've told that to a lot of my non-Mormon friends. And I have lots of friends who are not Mormon, lots of them. And maybe you're one of them. I'm sure you're not Mormon, but I consider you a very good person and a very good friend. And so this guy had a backpack on, and nobody was approaching him, and nobody said anything to him, and he was getting way out of line. So I told my wife, I turned to my wife, I said, I'm going to go put an end to this. And I walked up to him. I was very friendly. And I said, I put my arm up on his backpack because I wanted to feel what he had in his backpack. So I put my arm around him, and I was feeling his backpack, and he could have had a gun in there. I couldn't tell what it was, but why he had that backpack, I still wonder today. And I asked him, I told him, I said, everybody here wants to know why you came here today. And he said, just to preach and stuff, but the only thing he was doing is being very offensive and critical of our church. And finally, I just told him, I said, well, hey, you've had your turn, and this meeting is now coming to an end, and we're asking you to leave. I'm asking you to leave. And there were two other brothers there that were coming up on this steps up to the podium. And I said, brethren, would you escort this man out? And they did, and they were leaving willingly, but I asked those guys to make sure they saw him go out. But what really struck me, Mark, is I did not have a gun that day. And what if these guys would have had a gun? What if both of them would have had a gun? Because the rule of the church is you can carry a gun if you're if you're a police officer. Okay. And I haven't been a police officer. I haven't been for 28 years. And, but there's a federal law says that all former law enforcement can carry a gun anywhere in the country. That's a federal statute. And so I made my feelings known back in those days. And then after this event happened, our ecclesiastical leader, our clergyman, if you will, the bishop, was not there that day, only one of his counselors. And he admitted he did not know what to do. I've talked to him a lot since then. And that very day I talked to him. Most everybody in the church that day came up and thanked me. And so we were so taken and so scared as to what was going on. And we're so glad you came up there. And then the stake president thanked me, and the bishop thanked me over and over. But my problem, and I told them that, I said, we have a church policy that would not allow me to defend the people in the congregation that day. What if they would have had a gun? Are we prepared for that? And our church believes in being prepared for a lot of different eventualities, especially as long as I can remember. And the church has been preaching this for 100 years, that we should all have food storage, an independent supply of food, because of what they believe will be a catastrophe for our country. But also, if in the case that, somebody loses their job, somebody is hospitalized and they can't work, whatever eventuality there, we want to be prepared. Indeed, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has one of the best welfare systems in the world. And it doesn't matter if it's a hurricane or tornado or earthquakes, we're usually there before government. And we have boots on the ground with food and medical supplies, usually before any government. And we've been thanked for that numerous times by governors and presidents and local leaders, that we have that capability. And we do, and I love it. And I think that's beautiful. And I love the music from the Tabernacle Choir. I absolutely love that. My aunt used to sing for them, and I've had friends that sing for them. But this really bothers me, that the church would have some sort of policy where someone as trained as I am and experienced as I am, and I've never shot anybody, but one time I probably should have. But I have always used great restraint, and my decisions are measured. And I've never beat anybody up either. Never. I've never taken my fist and slugged another human being. In the 20 years that I was law enforcement, the only other time I actually did was during football practice, when one of the other players hit me and I hit him back. But that's the extent of my fighting. I don't fight. and I respect other people, and I respect people that I arrest, and I don't want to beat them up. And I've tackled guys, and I've stopped bar fights, but after I pin them against the wall or push them against the wall, one time I tackled two guys fighting on Main Street, and they were so bewildered. They go, how did you do that? And while they're getting up, they go, what did you do? And I said, well, I used to be a football player. And I said, right now, I'll tell you right now, you both can go separate directions and you can leave. I can't make you go home, but I can make you get off the street, because if I see you again tonight, I'm going to arrest you for the assaults that you did to each other. And they said, no, we'll leave. And that's how I was a law enforcement officer. I didn't feel that people need to be beat into jail. And I will admit, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 215. And most people, I was bigger most of the guys I arrested, but it didn't matter what size they were. I treated them the same. And so now my own church, who professes to believe that our Constitution was inspired by God, violates our rights to self-protection. And I would feel I wouldn't be able to live with that. I sat there and watched people get shot in my church, like what happened this morning. And I felt that we had a real close call with those two guys that infiltrated our church that day. And I told our leaders, this is something real. And you want us to leave our guns at home? People who are lawfully carrying a concealed carry permit had to go through all the training, had to go through all the money and time to be trained in that. And all the former cops and former military, you're saying, no, we don't want you to protect us. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. And I was pretty emotional about it. And I said, I would sure like that you're taking this to higher authorities in our church and telling them what I've said and telling them what happened here. And I never heard back anything. And I think they just wanted to brush it under the rug. And all of that really bothers me, because first, well, let's go back to that scripture the first part about the policy. And then I want to those two scriptures that are LDS scriptures. These scriptures belong to us. So carrying a lethal weapon onto church property was considered inappropriate. That was the policy before. Then it changed to, under the policies of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now it's prohibited. And this is just, so the tweaked language, it says there, we probably don't need to go all of that, but it's prohibited. So if you roll it up and let me see these two scriptures. These are out of the Doctrine.
I don't have that part of it.
Was that?
I don't have that part of it if you'd like to read it.
Oh, okay. Let me okay. Let me get it. I can read it because I have it on my phone here. Okay, here it is. I have it. So in the Doctrine and Covenants, which is LDS scripture, it says in 98. No. Sorry, I want to go back to. Yeah, 98, section 98, verse 6. Therefore, I, the Lord, justify you and your brethren of my church in befriending that law, which is the constitutional law of the land. And so if we believe that the Constitution is part of our theology, then I would tell this to my church. To my church leaders, a true friend of mine would never want to try to disarm me and take away my right to protect others and myself and my family. And I take grandkids to church quite often. And if that day, because I'm obeying the church rules, and I wasn't able to do that, I would probably sue the church. If I survive, but I doubt if I would survive, because I would be throwing myself at the shooters to save my children or grandchildren. I'm sure I would do that. But then the other one, it comes from the other two scriptures I want to read to everybody. come from section 101, verses 79 and 80. Therefore, and this is something I believe with all my heart, and I'm glad it's in our church theology. Therefore, it is not right that any man should be in bondage one to another. So in other words, we do not believe in slavery at all. And then the verse right after that, number 80 in the same section, reads this: And for this purpose have I established the constitution of this land by the hands of wise men whom I raised up for that very purpose, and redeemed the land by the shedding of blood, referencing the Revolutionary War. So it's obvious there that our church believes that the Constitution was inspired by God for the purpose of making sure that none of us ever participate as owners or as slaves ever again. And I believe in that stuff with all my heart. Well, I would tell every leader of the church right now, if that scripture is true, why are you trying to disarm us? And I've even told one of my leaders in my church, the ward I go to, I said, I will tell you right now, and you can tell the leaders if they want to excommunicate me or get me in trouble, whatever it is, I will bring a gun to church anytime I want. And none of you will know that I have it unless you start frisking me or stuff. But even then, it'll be rather difficult. But I'm telling that to you, and right now, I guess I'm telling it to the world that I will violate that rule. And if they want to shame me or scold me or kick me out or whatever else, then so be it. Because I believe in our foundation, both my church and the church of Jesus Christ that I belong to, and as a member of America. I don't mind being called a citizen of America. I love America. And so as a citizen and as a member of this church, I will carry a gun wherever I want. And I'll tell that to any police officer or anybody else. I don't believe in gun control. I believe the Second Amendment makes it clear that gun control is against the law. I've written, here, let me get this. I've written about 7 or 8 books, and my first book was this one. From My Cold Dead Fingers, Why America Needs Guns. I think that makes it pretty clear. And this book I wrote back in 1994. I rewrote it in 1999, and it's an excellent book. It's a little bit dated, but the statistics in here and the incidents in here are timeless, very true. And then I wrote a sequel to it, and I don't have that one in front of me here. I apologize, but it's called The Magic of Gun Control. And folks, just so you understand, The Magic of Gun Control is a sarcastic title. Because if gun control ever did any good whatsoever, it would have to be magic. So that's it. And if you want the 2 best books on the Second Amendment, these are available at our website, cspoa.org. And there's other books there. Obviously, my bestseller book is The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. But anyway, Mark, I know it took a long time there, and I would really like to hear what crossed your mind while I was giving all that information out.
Well, the one single thing that crossed my mind is a phrase that I'm sure you know extremely well. What stops somebody coming in to a church or any other place with a gun?
Yeah.
Somebody else.
Of course.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And facts being what they are, over the past 20, 30 years, the push that they've had using the media to push that agenda, every time that there is either a false flag or an actual shooting, the first thing that they do is start screaming gun control.
Yeah, get more gun control. But
And
you
it's
see, that's what really worries me. Have they fallen prey to that propaganda, to the lie told over and over that we're actually safer if you don't have a gun?
well, but
We're
see, this,
safer at church because Sheriff Mack, former Sheriff Richard Mack, former peace officer, detective, and school resource officer. I went to the school every day when I was a school resource officer, and I was in plain clothes, and I had a gun every day out of school. Yeah. Now I had a coat on and I had it covered. I don't even like people that carry. I don't like people to carry open because strategically it's not a good idea. Everybody knows you're packing. You're going to be the first one shot. You know, be be discreet about it. Be ready to defend everybody because you look like everybody else, just some John Doe. They don't know you have a gun. So anyway, I don't, but I really worry about that propaganda and brainwashing that we're all going to be safer if people don't have guns. That's an absolute lie.
that's
But
right.
it's starting to get to people. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
But you see, but this is what has gone on, like I said, for decades already. This is the media, the government feeding it to the media and the media brainwashing the people, is the idea and the premise, which goes right into what the total discussion of tonight is about. When you look at the Charlie Kirk shooting, when you look at what happened with the ICE officers, police officers in Minneapolis and Portland, et cetera, you look at what's happened in so many major cities
Mhm.
because the people believe the rhetoric that's put out there. And now we're in a situation, never mind the idea of gun control, because they don't even talk about that anymore. But what they've done is they've initiated on an ongoing basis key trigger words: Nazi, racist, anti Semite, all of these things that are immediately going to trigger people's emotions and
Yeah.
get them to the point where they do these stupid things. And I don't understand. I mean, I do understand. I understand that we're in a movie and this is what's going on. But I also understand the fact that when you look at the rhetoric that's out there and you say to
Yeah.
yourself, especially being a New Yorker, you look at this and you say, how can Mamdani be any kind of legitimate consideration for mayor of New York? How can people stand anywhere in the country and say, let's get rid of the police? Who the hell are you going
Yeah.
to call when that guy breaks
Yeah.
into your house? Al Sharpton?
Call a hippie.
Serious.
Yeah. No. Call AOC. She'll take care of you. Yeah.
Mix a drink.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, and we have so many people that, my mom taught us never to call each other stupid, but we have so many stupid people in office, especially in New York. It's just mind-boggling, and I really was disappointed in AOC. I thought she had a little more class than not to say any condolences to Mrs. Kirk or to his parents, or how sad this is that two little children lost a father. She went right into, well, I care about action. I care about action. And we've been trying to get universal background checks and nobody will do anything about it, and I'm pushing for, AOC, I sued the federal government in 1994 because they were forcing us to participate as sheriffs all across this country with national background checks on everyone. Okay. I won, but the background check stayed in place. It was called part of the severability clause. We've had background checks ever since then, since 1994. And a lot of states were doing it before then, including your own. But, you probably weren't even born yet then. So I don't know. But the problem is you took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, and every day you violate that, and you're fine with that. So your action is actually unconstitutional, borderline treason, because you're willingly and intentionally violating the supreme law of the land. And that's what protect. You know what the Constitution is? It's a system of checks and balances that puts all facets of government to do one thing, and that is to protect our civil rights. Our God-given rights is the responsibility of all government, all three branches and every facet of government, to protect the rights of the people. And you don't do that. And so, and you're supporting someone for mayor of New York who likewise will not be doing that.
Now, when you look at, and he dropped out of the race today, Eric Adams.
Yeah, I was really proud of him for doing that. I think now if we can get that Republican guy with the red hat, beret, if we can get him that, I can't believe I'm saying this. Cuomo might have a chance, and we're all behind Cuomo. It took a Mondani to get us all behind a liberal Cuomo, but just absolutely mind-blowing what's going on here. But yeah, you see, another thing, AOC, I've got to tell you this. The Constitution was specifically designed to prevent the type of government you're pushing for. It's to prevent communism. It's to prevent socialism so that we protect free will and agency. Agency means I choose for myself, not government. So it's so mind-blowing, but I really agree with John Kennedy, that the current senator from Louisiana. You're the reason why they put instructions on a shampoo bottle. He's so right.
Well, this comes from the same people who went on TV and said, Trump's telling us to drink bleach. It's that same mentality. That's why they have those same instructions on a bleach bottle, because like Judge Judy, you can't fix it.
And I saw the story of liberal women now taking Tylenol just to show Trump that they're not afraid of him and whatnot. So, folks, just like with, and this is another thing that really gets me about the stupids that want to tell ICE they can't wear masks. Well, if you get your people to quit threatening them, they might not wear masks. But the thing of it is, but the Democrat Party, including Newsom, except when he was out with friends, were saying that everybody should wear masks. Now you're saying nobody should wear masks, especially federal agents. And we want to be able to attack them. So we want to know who they are. So this is how politics, and the Democrat Party especially, but sometimes the Republicans do the same thing. But this is how stupid they are. Look back just 2 years ago, and you were going to arrest people for not wearing a mask. And this is kind of lunacy that we have in our country. We live in a country where we choose for ourselves, and that includes what medical treatment to seek and use. And you leftist, extremist, control freaks don't understand that. We are to be free here. And that includes even during, or maybe even especially during, emergencies. You don't get to violate my rights because there's an emergency. And most of the time, those emergencies are a big farce, just like COVID-19 was. But whether it is or not, doesn't matter. You don't get to run my life, and you don't get to choose my medical procedures for me and my family. And I got to share this real quick, because we're on that topic. This is one of the most powerful little booklets that you could ever get, my friends. And I hope you can see the title of that. And it's on the front page of our website at cspoa.org. This costs $3 for one. Okay. I highly recommend that you get dozens of them. And look, there's not much markup in this. You can get 3 for $5, you can get 6 or 7 for 10, and you can get the price goes down. But it's only like 16 pages. It fits in your shirt pocket. It's very small, very thin. Look how thin it is. You can read this in 10 minutes. But this is the only time in U.S. history where sheriffs sued the federal government, the Clinton administration no less, because that's who was president in 1994, take it all the way to the Supreme Court and win. And this is the biggest victory against overreach and the biggest victory in American history for the 10th Amendment, for state sovereignty and individual liberty. And in one point of this book, back on page 13, I think, I got it here. Yeah, page 13. The heading of that chapter or paragraph is "The Constitution Protects Us." And indeed, this is what it's, Scalia quotes another Supreme Court justice. And he said, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. AOC, I really hope, I think you're an okay person most of the time. And maybe your intentions are good. I don't know. But I'd really like you to listen to this and read this case in its entirety. Or give me a call and I'll go over it with you. And I'll even come out to New York and talk to you and people who are helping you get ready to run for president. Because principles of liberty far exceed any Democrat or political agenda. Freedom is what we were supposed to have here in America. And he goes on. And it divides the Constitution. Now we're still talking about the Constitution. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution. Are you ready, AOC? Are you ready? To the crisis of the day. The crisis of the day that you politicians cause, and then you come back with a solution on a silver platter that we're all just so scared to death not to take. And that's what happened with your ridiculous jab or vaccination, because it was extremely dangerous. And we know now without any hesitation whatsoever that Fauci lied, that Biden lied, but you know, he obviously wasn't all himself most of the time. So he wouldn't be able to be held accountable because he would not be fit. He's not fit to stand trial. But you are. You're not. You don't suffer from dementia or Parkinson's, and so really, I want to reach out to you and say, why can't we sit down and discuss these issues? Because I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the oath of office, and I believe that every sheriff should be defending their people in their county against politicians who don't believe in the Constitution. And that's why I formed the CSPOA. And folks, every one of you can become a part of that. And in fact, we're one of the very, very few peaceful and effective solutions we have left. So join us at cspoa.org. This organization was formed for you, that we would have, like President Lincoln said, that government by the people, for the people, and of the people would not perish from the earth. That's what it's for.
See, now everything that you just said is based on the assumption that AOC can read.
Well, okay. I bet she can, but can she really communicate, and can she really have an honest, open discussion? That's where I think she's vastly lacking. But I'm willing to give her a chance, and I'm willing to pay my way to Washington, D.C. or New York and sit down with her and discuss this. But at the same time, I want to ask her and every sheriff and every politician in Washington, D.C. and every city councilman, every county commissioner and every county attorney, would you be obligated to know and understand this case and enforce it? It's a Supreme Court decision. It's still intact. It has never been rescinded. It's been used several times for government overreach of federal government and the principle of federalism, the division of power between the states and the federal government. This is the most powerful that ever existed in the history of our country. And again, folks, this is the only time sheriffs ever sued the federal government and won a case at the U.S. Supreme Court. In 249 years, it's never happened before or since. So AOC, let's get together, okay? Because there's a Supreme Court case that you should be aware of, and you should be making sure that Congress follows it. But I have this feeling you're not going to, because you know that if I did it, you know you don't want anything to do with it. Isn't that right? But the rest of you listening right now, I'm counting on you to start on this because why? Because everybody needs to know about this case. It's a miracle and it's a tool for liberty, and everybody needs to read it. Make sure you get one to your sheriff and then your mayor and your city council.
See, now that's a big part of the problem that we started talking about at the beginning, is people getting involved. People have to, as much as you see these paid adjutants and paid actors out there protesting and rioting, et cetera, we have to get out there and peacefully do what needs to be done and inform and get it out there. Because as a former law enforcement person, when you see what happened in LA, even with the National Guard coming in, what would you have done?
Well, if I was sheriff, I would have had a nice meeting with the chief of police and the mayor, and I would have said this: we should not be leaving this to Trump. We should take care of our own backyard. We shouldn't be asking Trump to do this, and we shouldn't be forcing him to do this. But he has every bit of responsibility that if the governor and mayor refuse to protect the people, that he will. And the ultimate thing for America is that we're protecting the lives of the people who we work for. And they refuse to do it. And so, of course, it falls to somebody else. The first one should be the sheriff. He is the sheriff of the entire county, and that includes Los Angeles City. And he should just go right now. Sheriff, wake up and realize that this is your home county. And these are probably good people that are being victimized by the crime rates in Los Angeles. And some of it's happening in your county. But I guarantee you, Los Angeles City is in your county, and they all voted for you. The sheriff is voted on by the people inside the city limits. So he should go to them and say, if you're not going to clean up the city and get the crime going, I will. And I'll invite the National Guard in, and I'll form a posse. And I'll put on that posse whoever I dang well please, because I have the authority to do that. But at that time, he should say, look, let's work together and let's clean up the crime here in Los Angeles. And instead of letting people out and without bail and without prosecutions, let's go after the criminals and make sure they know we're not going to put up with this type of crime. And then the sheriff start taking measures into his own hands. Look, he's a cop. He answers to the people, and he's the only elected law enforcement anywhere in Los Angeles. And so he has an obligation, just like chief of police and the mayor have a responsibility, and so does the governor. And if they're refusing to do it because of their Trump derangement syndrome, then to heck with them. Sheriff, do your duty and get the work done. Then maybe if you fail, you should reach out to Trump and say, you know what, this is too big for any of us here. We don't have enough resources. And I doubt if that would be true, because Los Angeles has a lot of resources. But if it is, then he could turn to the president and say, yeah, okay, we failed. Bring your troops in. But, now Portland, he's going to send them to Portland. And all of a sudden, Portland's the cleanest city in America. And all the local officials say, hey, we don't have any problems with crime here. And, so don't come here because we're all good.
I mean,
yeah,
Portland
right.
is the home of
Yeah, it's Portland.
Yeah. But it's funny because when you look and you listen to a lot of these people, especially, your Hollywood people and your other quote unquote entertainers, my pet peeve is you sit and you listen to them and you have to say to yourself, number one, what do you not understand about the word illegal? Nobody's saying get rid of the aliens.
Yeah.
It's the illegal aliens.
Yeah, no kidding. But let's take it to the extreme. Let's take it to the extreme. Okay, let's say that the illegals that are just coming here to pick strawberries or work or whatever. Okay, but you're still saying that you want to keep the drug traffickers, you want to keep the human traffickers, you want to keep the sexual exploitation of children traffickers, you want to keep the international terrorists, you want to keep the murderers and the rapists. You're not differentiating. You're not differentiating at all. And you want to keep, and you want to run on that next year. You want to really run on that you're saying we want to keep all these here, and anybody trying to go after somebody, anybody that's illegal, you want to go after Trump and the guys wearing the mask and the people who are trying to make us safer. That's probably the most idiotic, insane thing I've ever heard.
Well, but then you add to that, number one, you've got, you have, people have been for the past at least 2 decades, probably longer, struggling to make ends meet. Okay.
Yeah.
You can no longer, when we grew up, you had one parent supplying everything that you needed to take care of a household, to feed you, to clothe you, to put a roof over your head, to send you to college, et cetera, et cetera. Now both parents have to work and maybe work 2 jobs in order to make ends meet. You are paying for these people who are being treated better than you are, who are being treated better than our veterans, and yet you don't seem to mind that. And then the final part of that is, and I've asked people this, just exactly how many of these illegal immigrants are you housing right now? If you're so for it, why don't you take them in? And you be responsible for their food, for their clothing, for their health care, for their education, for if they get into trouble with the law, for providing them defense and whatever legal action gets taken against them.
Yeah, amen.
But then they have nothing to say.
And their answers, I've seen those answers. Oh yeah, we want to help the poor people from Latin America and other poor countries and third world countries. We want to help them get here. And is it okay that they just come in on their own and illegally? Oh yeah. Then do you mind helping them and having them live with you? Boy, the answers go real crazy after that. And they live in a sanctuary city that they supported.
Yep.
And to be quite honest there, that's another crime. That's illegal. Aiding and abetting people who come into our country illegally is a crime. And how many politicians would be guilty of that if they would get to charging them? And I asked Pam Bondi, I'm asking her right now, you should be investigating every one of those. Start with Alejandro Mayorkas and then go from there. And I'll bet you'll end up actually investigating just about every Democrat in Washington, D.C.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, though, that we're finally getting to the point. We finally have an administration. We know what the president had to do in his first administration just to get things back on an even keel. But now you've got an opportunity.
Yeah, he had to protect the border. He had to secure the border. You're right.
But now he's got the opportunity to take these people to task about our laws. And we're talking these politicians. You had these 3 women that were arrested yesterday for following an ICE agent home, showing his address and everything else, putting his family and himself at risk. Because of all my years in the media in New York City, I know exactly where Chuck Schumer lives. How fast do you think there would be a black car in my driveway if I told everybody where Chuck Schumer's apartment is?
Yeah.
They've got to start playing common sense.
And do the Democrat leaders, does the Democrat leadership know that that's being intentionally done to cause harm to these people, to these agents and their families?
Absolutely, they do.
That's the only purpose that would serve. And that would be the same people that celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I can't believe there's human beings on the face of this planet that could do such a thing. I really can't. And that we have people like that in the halls of Congress.
But this is the point. Where have we gone as a society that you celebrate The death of
Murder.
somebody, the murder
Yeah.
of somebody who is having conversations, number one, is a father, is a son, is a husband, is just
Yeah.
not doing anybody any harm. You don't like his speech? I'll get a big piece of white oak tag and a black magic marker and give you a big TS slip for that. You know, I'm sorry, but because you don't like his message, he should be dead. And you've got people, you couldn't get the Congress to shut the hell up for 30 seconds
Yeah.
in a moment of silence for him. Where have we gone as a society that this is the standard bearer for these people?
Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. That's about as debased and low as you can go. Just astonishing.
You know, and when it comes to the ICE agents, again, as a former law enforcement officer, as a sheriff, somebody who is the highest authority in a county, if you had federal officers in your jurisdiction and you had people, whether they're illegals or not, on camera, throwing rocks and bottles, breaking the windows of these armored vehicles, taking this kind of assault type action against federal officers, what would you do? Seriously.
Well, first, I would have had a relationship with them before they even came in, and I would have invited them in, and we would have been trained and ready to go to help them in any way that we possibly could. And I would be doing the same messaging to everybody I could in my county, and I would even do some ads en español, porque yo hablo español, and I would make them and make sure that everybody could hear and understand the English of that warning, and in Spanish, and maybe a few other languages. I only speak Spanish and English, but I would have those messages out everywhere, TV, radio, everywhere in my county, and let them know the program is, if you self-deport, that you can come back. If you don't, you probably never will. And this is a benefit to you. We're trying to be fair and honest. And you came here illegally, go back, come back the right way, and we'll try to facilitate that. I'll be the first one to say it should be easier to become a citizen of the United States. The people who are trying to do it lawfully get so frustrated because it takes over 10 years sometimes and too much money. We need to change that. And I'm all for immigration, but I'm for orderly and lawful immigration. And I'm also for checkpoints on all of those people, because they're sending, a lot of these countries are doing exactly what Trump said, sending us their worst people. And we've seen that with the crimes they've committed here. And look, Tren de Aragua. I mean, can you believe it? What they were doing in Colorado and getting away with it. And so finally, they said, okay, we're going after them. Some of the sheriffs there woke up and did it. And I'm still pushing this nationwide. The sheriffs of this country must be involved with deportation, because who knows the county better? The county sheriff knows it better than any of those federal officials. Far more. And if we're going to get these sleeper cells of terrorists, international terrorists from the Middle East, and the cartels who are now teaming up together, and know where they are, because most sheriffs don't. They know where some of them are, and a lot of them. I've been riding with them in some counties. I was with a sheriff in New Mexico, and he says, cartels live right there on that ranch. Yeah, okay. What are you doing about it? Let's get them out of here, you know? So, folks, there is so much work still to be done. And yes, just like Mark, I honor what President Trump has done so far in securing the border. What a miracle that has been. Now, for my to-do list, we need to really go DOGE on Planned Parenthood. Folks, even if you believe in abortion, which I don't think many of you will, but do we have a right? Does government have any prerogative at all to force us to give taxpayer dollars to a private organization such as Planned Parenthood? They provide no government service, and we, the taxpayers, pay $800 million a year to this organization. That is illegal and criminal funding. What I have a national organization, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Should all of you be forced to pay for our organization's existence? We protect civil rights. We protect you from tyrannical government. That's what our mission is. And so why not give me? Well, I'm not as big as Planned Parenthood, so I'll take $100 million a year. Folks, I would never ask for that, and I would never accept it. And federal grants are another thing there's no such thing as federal bribes, and that's all the federal grants are. That should not exist. It's all strings attached. But Planned Parenthood should not get a dime of taxpayer dollars. So somebody wants to make a donation to Planned Parenthood, go ahead. But that organization should be investigated for selling body parts. And I don't trust any of them. But the thing of it is, there's a lot of corruption in Washington, D.C. because Planned Parenthood takes that same money and the donations they get besides that money, and they funnel it back to the very politicians that funneled it to them in the first place. Folks, that is a crime, and it's the epitome of corruption, and this must stop. And I beg President Trump and Mike Johnson to get going on this and get them defunded from taxpayer dollars.
This is all part and lends itself to all the rhetoric that we're talking about. It's getting all of these people nuts and getting all these people to do these stupid things. Because one thing that I've done many shows on child trafficking and had many SRA survivors and trafficking survivors on the show. And when you listen to their stories of survival, it's just horrific. And the fact that it still goes on today and most people ignore it. And President Trump said it in the beginning. This is all about the children. When they find it's what happens to the children when that gets exposed that will unite us all. But so many people in this country don't understand the premise that with rights comes the other R word, responsibility, which has disappeared from the English language.
Amen.
Nobody wants to be responsible for anything. Nobody wants to have to, everybody wants to do something. It's not my kid. I didn't do it. It's them. Everybody wants to lawyer up and just, be scot-free on it. No. And it's just exactly what you were talking about just now. Where do they come off? I'm a very, very charitable person, but I decide where my money goes, not you.
Yeah.
And this is what they have gotten away with for years. And this is the expectation that these people on the other side have. And they think that that's not just their right, but their God-given right. Their entitlement to have that. And these are the discussions that we need to have because that's got to stop.
Well, that reminds me, that's one of the first and most fundamental rights, right after the right to life, the right to breathe, and the right to be free. The very next one, this is part of the one, to be free, and to also the pursuit of happiness. My right to the fruit of my labor. What I work on belongs to me. What I create belongs to me and not the government and my neighbors. Government can only do what the people have a right to do. They just represent us. If you have a right to come and take my property and take my money and give it to other people, then we're all dead. We're all done. Because I'm in charge of my property and I'm in charge of the fruit of my labor. And that's one thing that this country, this government hasn't been too good at ever since they formed the Federal Reserve and the IRS back in 1913. Folks, Trump has said he wants to abolish the IRS. We need to really push that and keep him going on that. But he wants to fire a couple of people, including Jerome Powell, from the Federal Reserve. He should abolish the entire Federal Reserve. He just got through doing a wonderful leadership that never has happened in American history, calling out the UN. And the UN is not a friend of the United States. They keep getting us in wars. They want global government. They want to destroy the sovereignty of America. They are in charge of WHO, the World Health Organization, and they're pushing all of this medical tyranny and tyranny at every doorstep of every kind. And he should have just taken the one step left, and that is get us out of the UN and tell the UN to go somewhere else. You know, the UN still does not try to do anything to stop the war against the Ukraine from Russia. Russia is still sitting on the Security Council, the World Security Council. Russia, who's killing tens and thousands of people every week and has no right to be doing what he's doing. China, same thing. They want to invade Taiwan and they want to keep going after this, and they don't respect human rights. We talked about respect at the beginning of the show. They don't respect human rights, and they still have child labor, and they still force abortions on people. And folks, they also sit on the Security Council for the UN. The UN is a waste of time. They have not kept us out of wars, just the opposite. So we've got a lot of work to do, but Trump needs to take that one step further and say, you know what? You're not a friend to the American people. You're not a friend of America. We're not putting up with you anymore. Leave us alone. And we recommend to all the Western countries get out of the UN. And maybe you would see people following Trump's wonderful example, because they have not provided any benefit to the world or to our country.
Well, this is the whole part of the cabal that was set up, you know, like you brought up with the Federal Reserve in 1913 and the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all part of the cabal that was set up back in 48 with the League of Nations. And,
right.
We can't ever have this happen again. But instead, ever since World War II, it was right after World War II, you had Korea. Right after Korea, you had Vietnam. And I think the only thing that saved us from a follow-up war from there was the fact that everybody was up in arms about, you know, we shouldn't have been in Vietnam to begin with. Let's end the war. So they calmed it down. Then all of a sudden they started with the terrorism. That was the next step. Yeah. Until the terrorism reached a height, and that brought us into another war, another series of wars. And this is the whole agenda of the cabal, of the UN, all of these movements.
Yeah, and now they want to start this international currency thing and digital currency. And folks, if you really looked at the United Nations, none of you, I mean, even AOC, if she really looked at the United Nations, she would not want to stay there. Nope. It's not what they pretended to. They pretended it to be a peacekeeping organization, and you know, we got to get the world's nations together to keep the world safe. That has been a bunch of bunk. That has never happened. Yeah, and oh boy, I guess that proves, Mark, we've got a lot of work to do still, folks. And and I really invite all of you to join the peaceful and effective solution that is that of the CSPOA. Join us in this holy cause of liberty. CSPOA.org.
People have to learn again, you know, and I know people hate it when I do this because I keep bringing it up. People have to learn to get involved. It's just as simple as that. You can't be an armchair quarterback anymore. We're too far into this. Yeah. We've suffered too much. We've watched, and a lot of us understand the fact that we're playing their game against them, especially with the media. And we're showing a lot of the stupidity that's going on now to show people how ridiculous it is, and even to try and wake up some of the normies out there and let them see, you know, how can you back this stuff? How can you back people in Congress calling for somebody's death? How can you back them doxing ICE agents and telling people that, pull down your mask, et cetera, et cetera. These, and while you walk out of Congress and the Senate with your armed detail, or you walk out of City Hall with your armed detail, okay? These are things people have to start to realize and start to get involved with. They don't have to leave their homes. They don't have to spend any money on it, but there are so many ways that they can get involved. Now, I was on a roundtable last night with Patriot Underground and a few other people. And one of the things that we discussed was this premise of when they get into Portland.
Oh, yeah.
And I get a little carried away at times with certain things that really get me going. But I've looked at
we
it
all do
for a long time this way. I can't wait until they send ICE and the National Guard, and if necessary, the Marines, to Portland, and just one of these buttheads gets in their face or throws something at them or hits them. Just with one quick stroke, the butt of the rifle, boom! Just like turning on the lights when you have roaches. They are going to scatter like nobody's business. Right. Because they're all a bunch of wimps. They're all a bunch of paid loudmouths. And I keep bringing this up also, but I had a guy on the show a few months back who had a company called Crowds on Demand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've looked at that website before.
Yeah, and I asked him straight out, who pays for this? All different people, sometimes unions. Couldn't get a straight answer out of him. When the LA riots happened, I asked him, did you have any people involved in that? Never heard back from him. So there are things going on as they go and they look at Soros and the rest of them. There are things going on in this country that are being like the bat signal. They're being burrowed into everybody's eyes and blaring out on horns. And yet we still have a whole bunch of people that don't see and don't get it and can't, I don't want to say march in line, but can't accept the values of this sign behind me. That's all it takes. That's all. I always live my life by the golden rule. It's a real simple way to live your life. Treat others the way that you expect to be treated. And while there's always going to be a prick in the crowd, 99.9% of the time, you will get back what you give.
Yeah, true.
But you have
I totally believe that.
So, where do we go? How do we remedy this? How do we move forward in a society that's gone so far astray?
Well, I hope that's just not rhetorical. I want to answer that. I believe with all my heart that there is a solution. There is a peaceful solution, and it's the foundation of our organization. But it was also the foundation of Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk dedicated his life to this. I've dedicated my life to this, and that is simply this, folks. The answer is easy. But to implement the solution is not. And that's why, just as you were saying, Mark, we all have to be involved in this. Jefferson warned us that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, eternal, always vigilant. And he was talking to us, not to public officials. We have to keep them intact. We have to keep their feet to the fire. That's our job. They work for us. We, the people, the first three words of the Constitution. Folks, we've got to get busy. We've got to be vigilant, not violent, vigilant. And we've got to be educated, and we've got to be dedicated, and we've got to be committed to this, returning our country to its foundation. Turn our hearts back to the Lord and back to the Constitution, and never vote for anyone who says that they're going to be violating the Constitution so they can give you a bunch of stuff all the time, a bunch of free stuff. A bunch of free stuff is not equality. Equal stuff is not equality. That's socialism or communism. But we're always going to be different. If somebody else works harder than I do, they deserve to have more than I do. Okay? That's life. But to force everybody into this equality cocoon that government has for you, folks, that has never worked. Socialism and communism always turn violent and dictatorial because there's always somebody that wants to be free. Isn't that amazing? They are the antithesis. Socialism and communism are the antithesis of individual liberty and civil rights. That's why this is so amazing that we're missing the boat on this. CSPOA actually is about the only organization nationally that stands for civil rights now. We want all the civil rights protected of all people. Doesn't matter. I don't care what color you are. Don't care how old you are. Don't care who your daddy was. Don't care what race you are. Don't care where you're from. I don't care. Freedom, individual liberty is for all people. And government's job is to protect the civil rights of all people. If we're not doing that, then we're missing the boat entirely. And this thing about equal stuff, that's not freedom. It's not help. And it's the worst thing that you could do for any country. And there's too much of history that bears that out. And I hate to tell you this, but Hitler was a socialist. And you wanting socialism, you're wanting what Hitler wanted. Okay? Yeah. Sorry. So show me where communism has really worked. China? Oh, okay. Go live there. Cuba? Go live there. Okay? But look what has happened to the people there. The people are always the victims of this totalitarian socialism or communism. Yeah. And at the same time, I got a little secret for you. America is not a democracy, nor were we ever supposed to be.
Nope.
So,
it's right there in the pledge.
And to the republic.
Yep.
I guess people just didn't get that part, I don't know.
Oh, nor did they get the part of, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation
under God.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes,
a Republican under God. Well, boy, that's news for us, isn't it, folks? But like I said, that's the solution, folks. It's still the solution. The solution has not changed in 249 years. It has not changed. It's still the same. And if we get back to the foundation, our Constitution, then we can save America and we can turn all this around. If we do not, we are doomed.
I've said this a billion times already. What needs to be done, if this is to have legs, is to change human nature. And the only way that we change human nature is one person at a time.
Yes.
And they have to start to realize that, first of all, getting back to what you just said, we grew up with that. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Okay? It just doesn't exist no matter where you go.
That's right.
It's got a cost.
Yep.
And on top of that, getting back to Charlie Kirk again.
Yep.
What did Charlie Kirk do? Charlie Kirk did the one thing that the cabal and the media truly, truly, truly wanted to do to us. And that's to get us not to be able to speak to each other.
Yeah.
And that's what Charlie did. He had conversations. No matter what your thoughts were, no matter what your beliefs were, no matter what his beliefs were, you had a conversation. And so many people can't do that anymore.
And he was nice about it. Yeah. Every now and again, he got a little sarcastic, but it was minor, but it certainly never was promoting violence of any kind. And these people that are saying that he was a racist, that's absolutely absurd. And guess what they call me? They call me anti-Semitic. They call me racist. They call me white supremacist. And yet I've asked them, debate me publicly. And you point out to everyone what I've ever said or done that was anything of the sort. They won't do it because they can't do it. I never have been, never will be, and that my mother raised us to be accepting and tolerant of everybody, and everyone was welcome in our home. And I just came back from my high school reunion. Just my wife went with me. She didn't go to my high school, but we went to my high school reunion Friday and Saturday, and we drove back this morning. And we got back at about 1:00, and then we got prepared for your show. And I thank you again for having me. But I was hugging all my classmates, and in Southeast Arizona, who do you think my classmates were? We're an hour away from the Mexico border. We're 45 minutes away from New Mexico, Las Cruces, and Lordsburg, and Deming, and how about this one? Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And I loved them all. Lenny Carrasco, I played football and basketball with him since the 7th grade. And we just saw each other. We haven't seen each other in 10, 20 years, and we just hugged. And Thelma Lott, really a good lady. And it just so happens that she's very dark complected. She's black. And I absolutely love her. And the Saenz family and the Cervantes family, and I love every one of them. And even the atheists, and even Tom, who's always arguing, and he even admits he's a bleeding heart liberal. He'd tell you, my 2 brothers are as conservative as they come. And I said, yeah, I know your 2 brothers. They are, especially David. I love him. And we were helping campaign for Pat Buchanan way back in 1996. So, folks, it doesn't matter who you are. You're all welcome to the table, and we need you all. And we need to sit down, and we need to start discussing that the problem between Democrats and Republicans is that they believe that their side has to win no matter what. And so Washington warned us that a 2-party system would be the bane of American liberty. We got to be very careful with that. I would like to dissolve that. I mean, it's never going to happen because the Democrats and Republicans are never going to go with that. But we cannot put political parties ahead of liberty or our Constitution. And that's part of this whole solution thing. We've got to get back to where those are just tools for liberty. The Republicans and Democrats, those parties should be tools for liberty, not the end game for destroying liberty. And RESPECT, civility, that C should stand for civility. Folks, we've got to be able to sit down and talk with each other and devise a plan to be free once again. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Martin Luther King, was he free? He got arrested 30 times. All you Democrats assail Donald Trump for being charged over 30 times. Martin Luther King was arrested over 30 times. And he wrote some of his best speeches while he was in jail. And it was government that put him there. It's government that's been the problem, folks. And it still is today. Mean, horrible officers arrested Martin Luther King, and he never committed a crime. I didn't agree with everything he said, but there's a lot I did. And folks, we must return to this peaceful and respectful process.
Absolutely. And this is the biggest problem that we face in the world. Because, again, going back to the cabal and the media, they have ginsued us into such little pieces to divide us.
Right.
And it's got us, we all have to police our own. Jews have got to stop with this anti-Semitism BS. Blacks have to stop with the racism, the Muslim phobia, or Islamophobia. Well, all of this stuff has to stop. Get rid of the adjectives, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like I've said a billion times with Black Lives Matter, if you have to put an adjective before lives matter, you got a problem.
Yeah, there's a problem. Yep.
So everybody's got to there are reasons that people have problems with other people.
Yeah.
And people have to go inside and look at themselves. And instead of getting into a fight, how did I contribute to this?
Right.
Where did I go wrong? Am I overstepping a bounds somewhere?
Right.
Very smart person once said to me, because I'm always the type who likes to speak his mind, and I'm always very honest. But what she said to me was, impact trumps intent. And you could say the most honest thing in the world and be totally justified in what you're saying. But the manner in which you say it and the words that you choose to use could be taken the wrong way. And thus, in turn, your message gets totally misconstrued. And now you've got an argument on your hands. But people have to learn to converse. People have to learn to get along and stop the divisive BS, because religion has been a huge part of that. The media has been a huge part of that. Governments have been a huge part of that. The only way that they can control is go back to Julius Caesar, divide and conquer. And that's exactly what they've done. Very, very sad. Very sad. But I have to tell you, it's always a pleasure having you on. It's been a great time, a great conversation. And look, hopefully people will wake up a little bit and people will start getting the message that, hey, we can't treat each other the way that we're treating each other. And we absolutely can't treat the people that we expect to protect us the way that we're treating them.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Don't follow the example of the Democrats and Republicans. Be your own person. Stand for liberty, stand for freedom, stand for civility, and stand for friendship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, you can always find Sheriff Mack right here, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association.org. It's a great organization.
Yeah.
And it's all about your liberty. It's all about what the Constitution was about. How many people have never read the Constitution and don't understand the Constitution, like your girl AOC? They don't get it and they never will.
Right.
But we have to do what we need to do for us as people.
It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I thank you.
I thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure having you here. I want to thank our absolutely most best people in the world, Claudia Cat and Carrie and Doug, because without them, I'm nobody. I'm just here talking to a friend of mine. So, thank you guys for all of your help. Thank you in the audience for being here with us, for listening to us, and be kind to your neighbor, no matter how much of a jag-off they are. Be kind to them. Be well, everybody be safe, and we'll see you next Sunday on Respect. Good night, everybody.